The most expensive mistake in retirement is not always spending too much. Sometimes it is spending too little for 30 years, dying with a beautiful balance sheet, and realizing too late that the money did its job, but you never let it pay you back. That sounds strange because most retirement advice is built around fear. Do not run out of money. Do not withdraw too much. Do not trust the market. Do not assume Social Security will save you. Do not get careless in the first 5 years. All of that matters. I would be the last man to tell you that caution is useless. Caution is how you get to retirement with capital still intact. Caution is how you survive a bear market without selling your future at a discount. Caution is how you avoid becoming dependent on your children or the kindness of Washington. But caution can become a cage. And a retirement plan that never changes after day one is not a plan. It is a frozen guess. That is the central line I want you to hold in your mind. Retirement is not a stone tablet. It is a living operating system. You start with rules because you do not know what the first years will bring. Then time gives you information, markets give you information, your health gives you information, Social Security gives you information, your spending habits give you information, your portfolio gives you information. And a sensible person updates the plan as the evidence changes. Only a fool says, I made my plan at age 65, and I will obey it blindly at age 75 even though the facts have changed. That is not discipline, that is stubbornness wearing a suit. The first mechanism is the survival to optimization switch. Most people enter retirement asking one question: how do I avoid running out of money? That is a good question at the start. It is not the only question forever. In the first years of retirement, the danger is real. A bad market early can do more damage than the same bad market later. If you retire, begin withdrawals, and then the market falls sharply, you may be selling shares while they are cheap. You reduce the number of shares left to recover. The portfolio does not merely take a temporary hit. It can suffer a permanent wound that is sequence of returns risk. It is one of the few phrases in retirement planning that deserves its reputation. The first 5 to 10 years matter because they reveal whether your plan is fragile or resilient. If the market hurts you early and you are forced to withdraw aggressively, the plan can be damaged. If you survive those early years and the portfolio grows instead, the entire situation changes. This is what most retirees are never taught. If you are 5 years into retirement and your portfolio is larger than when you started, you are not in the same retirement you were in on day one. Your risk has changed, your time horizon has shortened, your Social Security or pension income may have begun, your spending pattern may be clearer, your health and energy may still be strong, your plan may be overfunded relative to the life you actually want to live. At that point, the question should no longer be, can I survive? The question becomes, how do I use this money intelligently while I still have the health, time, and people to enjoy it? That is not recklessness. That is ownership. A retiree who never updates the plan can make the opposite mistake of the reckless spender. The reckless spender pulls too much out in bad markets and destroys the plan. The frozen retiree pulls too little out in good outcomes and destroys the purpose of the plan. Both are errors. One destroys capital, the other destroys life. The second mechanism is the funded status mirror. Pension funds do not ask only, what percentage did we withdraw this year? They ask whether assets are sufficient relative to future liabilities. In plain English, they ask, are we funded? A household should think the same way. Suppose a couple retires with $2 million and plans to spend $80,000 a year from savings before tax inflation and adjustments. That is a 4% starting withdrawal. They are careful because the first years matter, they keep cash reserves, they cover essentials with reliable income where possible. They do not act like the game has already been won. That is sensible. Now suppose 5 years pass. Instead of shrinking, the portfolio grows to $3 million. Social Security is now paying, the house is paid off, actual spending was lower than expected. Health is good, the worst sequence risk period has partly passed. If that couple keeps spending exactly as if they still had $2 million and the same risks, they may be using yesterday's fear to govern today. As reality, the better question is, what is our funded status now? How much future spending do we need? How many years might we need it? How much reliable income do we already have? How much of our spending is essential? How much is flexible? What reserve do we need for health care, long-term care, family help, and market shocks? If the answer shows that the plan is now materially overfunded, then spending more is not a violation of prudence. It may be the rational thing to do. I have always believed a dollar should have a job. In retirement, the job of some dollars is security. The job of some dollars is income, the job of some dollars is optionality, and the job of some dollars is to buy irreplaceable experiences before time takes away the chance. The third mechanism is the guardrail raise. A retirement plan without guardrails is either too loose or too rigid. Too loose means you spend whatever feels comfortable and hope the market cooperates. That is not a plan. That is a wish. Too rigid means you withdraw the same inflation, adjusted amount forever, regardless of whether your portfolio doubles or is cut in half. That may be simple, but life is not simple. Guardrails solve the problem by giving you a disciplined way to change. If the portfolio moves far ahead of plan, you allow yourself a raise, not a wild raise, a measured one. If the portfolio falls behind, you trim flexible spending. Not forever, not in panic. You trim until the plan recovers. This is how a retiree can spend more without becoming reckless. The guardrail says, you may enjoy success, but you must keep the system intact. That is how I like to think about money generally. Enjoy the fruit, do not chop down the tree. If your portfolio has grown substantially and your withdrawal rate as a percentage of current assets has fallen below the lower guardrail, that may be permission to increase spending. A 5% or 10% spending raise can be perfectly rational if the funded status supports it. If the market falls and your withdrawal rate climbs above the upper guardrail, you reduce flexible spending for a season, maybe fewer expensive trips, maybe delay the new car, maybe reduce gifts for a year. You do not cut food, shelter, medicine, and electricity. If you have built the plan correctly, you cut the spending that can flex. That distinction matters. A good plan does not force you to panic. It gives you instructions before panic arrives. The fourth mechanism is the two-bucket life. Retirees make themselves anxious when they treat all spending as one giant number. That is not how life works. There is essential spending and there is flexible spending. Essential spending is the floor, housing, food, utilities, insurance, basic transportation, healthcare, taxes, the things you must pay even when markets are ugly. Flexible spending is the life layer, travel, dining out, gifts, hobbies, home upgrades, family trips, extra generosity, the things that make retirement feel like freedom rather than merely survival. A wise retirement plan funds the floor with the strongest materials available: Social Security, pensions, annuities, if appropriate, bond ladders, cash reserves, conservative income sources. The point is to make sure the floor does not break. Once the floor is secure, the retiree can spend from the life layer with far less fear. That is what many people miss. The purpose of separating buckets is not accounting neatness. It is emotional freedom. If you know your basic life is covered, it becomes much easier to take the grandchild to Disney, spend a month in Italy, help a daughter with a down payment, or upgrade the old kitchen you have disliked for 20 years. You are no longer asking, will this ruin me? You are asking, is this within the flexible bucket? And do the guardrails allow it? That is a healthier question. Money should not make every enjoyable decision feel like a courtroom trial. It should create clear permission when the plan can afford it. The fifth mechanism is the go-go window. Time is not a neutral asset in retirement. $1 at age 66 is not the same as $1 at age 86. At 66, $1 can buy a difficult hike, a long flight, a family vacation, a new hobby, a road trip, a second honeymoon, a month near the ocean, a memory with a grandchild who still wants to hold your hand. At 86, that same dollar may still be useful. It may buy care, comfort, safety, medicine, or dignity. Those are important, but it may not buy the same freedom. Retirement spending often follows a smile. Spending can be higher in early retirement, lower in the middle years as activity slows, and sometimes higher again late in life because of care costs. That means a perfectly flat spending plan can be emotionally and practically wrong. If you are healthy, active, and ahead of plan early in retirement, there is a strong argument for spending more. Then, not later, you cannot store the ability to ski, hike, travel easily, or gather the whole family at the same ages forever. Time has no refund desk. This is where the phrase "die with zero" becomes attractive. I understand the spirit behind it. Do not hoard money you will never use. Do not become the richest person in the cemetery. Do not confuse a large estate with a well-lived life. That spirit is wise. The literal math can be dangerous. You do not know your death date. You do not know whether you or your spouse will live into the 90s. You do not know whether long-term care will be needed. You do not know whether a family member will need help. You do not know whether taxes, inflation, market returns, or health costs will change in ways you did not expect. So I would not aim to die with zero. I would aim to die without obvious regret. That is a different target. It means you spend more intentionally while you are healthy, but you keep a reserve for longevity and care. You do not hoard every dollar. You do not burn the whole barn either. You harvest intelligently. The sixth mechanism is the regret mirror. At the end of life, there are two kinds of regret. One says, I spent too much, too soon, and made my final years fragile. The other says, I saved too much, too long, and missed the life I could have afforded. Financial media talks constantly about the first regret. It talks far less about the second. I understand why. Running out of money is a frightening image. It is concrete. It is easy to warn against. Nobody wants to be old and broke. But never using the money is also a failure. If the money was built to fund a life, I have known people who could easily afford comfort travel, generosity, and help for family, but still lived as if every restaurant meal might ruin them. They were not poor, they were haunted. Their spreadsheet said yes, their nervous system said no. That is not financial independence, that is financial imprisonment with better furniture. A good plan must solve both problems. It must protect against the catastrophe of running out and against the tragedy of never living. The seventh mechanism is the annual pilot check. A retirement plan should be reviewed like a flight plan. You set a direction, but a pilot does not go to sleep because the plane took off correctly. Wind changes, weather changes, fuel burn changes, the runway changes. A good pilot makes adjustments. Every year, a retiree should ask a few serious questions. What is the portfolio worth now? What is the current withdrawal rate based on today? Balance, not the original balance. How many years might this money still need to last? What guaranteed income is now active? What expenses have changed? What health changes matter? What family goals have appeared? What market conditions are different? Are we ahead, behind, or on track? If ahead, what spending can we increase without weakening the plan? If behind, what flexible spending can be reduced temporarily? This annual process does something very valuable. It turns fear into management. The retiree no longer has to guess every day. The plan has a review date. The rules have a place to operate. Spending changes are made with evidence, not impulse. That reduces anxiety. It also prevents good outcomes from being wasted. A portfolio that grows in retirement is information. It may be telling you the original spending level was too conservative. It may be telling you the market helped. It may be telling you your habits are less expensive than you feared. It may be telling you that Social Security, pensions, or lower expenses have improved the plan. Use that information. Money that has already won part of the game should not be forced to keep playing defense forever. The eighth mechanism is the permission system. This may be the most underrated part of retirement planning. Many retirees do not need more money. They need permission. Not permission from a child. Not permission from a television personality. Permission from a plan that is honest enough to say, you can spend this. That permission should be rule-based, not emotional. For example, if the plan remains above a certain funded level, flexible spending can rise by a set amount. If the portfolio grows beyond a certain threshold, a portion of the surplus can be allocated to experiences, gifts, or home improvements. If guaranteed income covers all essentials, portfolio withdrawals can be aimed more deliberately at quality of life. That is powerful because it prevents both extremes. It prevents the retiree from saying yes to everything. It also prevents the retiree from saying no to life out of habit. I like systems that remove unnecessary emotion. In business, I want managers who know how capital should be allocated before a pile of cash starts burning a hole in their pockets. In retirement, I want households that know how surplus should be used before fear or guilt steals the joy from it. Some surplus should remain invested. Some should reinforce reserves. Some should buy time with family. Some should improve daily comfort. Some should be given while you are alive enough to see the effect. Giving during life can be one of the most intelligent uses of excess capital. $1 given to a child or grandchild at the right moment may be worth more than $5 left after you are gone. It may pay for education, reduce debt, help with a home, fund a business, or create a memory. But it should still be done within guardrails because generosity without a plan can become self-harm. That is the pattern again. Joy with rules, freedom with structure, spending with a floor. The ninth mechanism is the care reserve. This is where I become conservative. Again, late life care can be expensive, very expensive. It can arrive suddenly. it can last longer than expected, it can affect one spouse while the other still needs lifetime income. It can turn a comfortable plan into a stressed plan if no reserve exists. So even if the plan is ahead, I do not like the idea of spending every surplus dollar. You need a care reserve. That reserve may be explicit, like assets set aside for future care. It may be insurance, depending on the situation and pricing. It may be home equity. It may be a conservative portion of the portfolio. It may be a plan for downsizing. The form can vary. The function cannot. The function is dignity. A retiree who spends more in the go years should still protect the no-go years. That is not fear. That is respect for uncertainty. A good retirement plan says, we will not let fear cancel life, and we will not let enjoyment cancel prudence. Hold both ideas. The 10th mechanism is the enough number. Many people reach retirement with no idea what enough means, so they keep accumulating by reflex. More feels safer, more feels smarter, more feels like success, but more is not a plan. Enough means your essential expenses are covered with high confidence. Enough means your flexible spending has rules. Enough means your care reserve is real. Enough means your spouse is protected. Enough means taxes have been considered. Enough means market declines have been modeled. Enough means you have room for error. Once enough is reached, the marginal dollar has a different purpose. It may still compound. It may become legacy. It may become generosity. It may become experiences. It may become comfort. But it should not automatically become a monument to anxiety. The man who keeps building a bigger pile without asking what the pile is for has not mastered money. Money has mastered him. I have always admired frugality when it is chosen intelligently. I do not admire fear disguised as frugality. There is a difference between not wasting money and being unable to enjoy it. A cheap person says no because spending hurts. A wise person says no because the purchase does not serve the life he wants. A wise person can also say yes. That is the part many retirees forget. The 11th mechanism is the spouse test. Retirement spending decisions often affect two people with different fears. One spouse may be eager to enjoy more. The other may worry about late life insecurity. One may look at a growing portfolio and see opportunity. The other may see a cushion that should never be touched. Both may be reasonable. A good plan makes the conversation less personal and more factual. If essentials are covered, say so. If the portfolio is overfunded, say so. If care reserves are insufficient, say so. If a spending raise is safe only within a certain band, say so. If a large trip is affordable but a vacation home is not. Say so numbers can reduce marital tension when they are presented as rules rather than weapons. The goal is not for the spender to defeat the saver or the saver to defeat the spender. The goal is to design a life where both security and enjoyment are respected. That is why I like dividing spending into floors, ranges, and ceilings. The floor says, we will always protect this. The range says, this is normal life. The ceiling says, when we are ahead. We can go here, but not beyond here without another review. That structure lets a couple enjoy success without feeling like they are driving in fog. The 12th mechanism is the market weather valve. Spending should breathe with markets, but not gasp. In good markets, you can increase flexible spending modestly if the funded status supports it. In bad markets, you trim flexible spending modestly if the withdrawal rate rises beyond the guardrail. The key word is modestly. A retiree should not double spending because of one good year. A retiree should not cancel life because of one bad quarter. You are not a sailboat thrown around by every gust. You are a ship with a rudder. Small adjustments made consistently can prevent large, painful adjustments later. That is true in business. It is true in investing. It is true in retirement. If you wait until a plan is in crisis, the required changes are often severe. If you adjust early, the changes can be gentle. This is the advantage of annual review and guardrails. They let the plan correct itself before the damage becomes large. The 13th mechanism is the legacy clarity test. Some people say they want to die with zero, but secretly they also want to leave money to children, grandchildren, charities, churches, or causes. Some people say they want to leave a legacy, but what they really want is permission not to spend. Some people say they do not care about leaving money, but would feel terrible if a surviving spouse had less security. You must be honest. Legacy should be a choice, not a leftover accident. If you want to leave a meaningful estate, build that into the plan. If you want to give during life, build that into the plan. If you want to spend most of it, build that into the plan with a care reserve and guardrails. if you do not know. Admit that and revisit the question. Unclear goals create unclear spending. Unclear spending creates anxiety. Anxiety creates paralysis. And paralysis creates the retiree who dies with more money than he started with while saying no to things he could easily afford. That is not noble. That is unmanaged fear. The 14th mechanism is the living dividend. A business owner understands dividends. When the business has strong earnings, sufficient reserves, and no better use for all the excess cash, it can return some money to owners. A retiree with an overfunded plan can think similarly. The portfolio is the business, the household is the owner. If the business is healthy, reserves are strong, and future obligations are covered, it may be rational to pay a living dividend. That living dividend might fund travel, family gifts, a safer car, a better mattress, help with grandchildren, a home modification, a hobby, or a charitable gift. It is not reckless because it is paid only when the business can afford it. It is not random because it follows rules. That concept changes the emotional tone. Instead of asking, "Am I allowed to spend principal?" the retiree asks, "Has the plan earned a living dividend this year?" That is a much better question. It respects both capital and life. The 15th mechanism is the final contract. Before retirement, the contract is mostly about accumulation. Save, invest. Avoid foolish debt. Keep costs low. Let compounding work. Delay gratification. After retirement, the contract changes. The new contract is to convert capital into a well-funded life without becoming either careless or afraid. That requires a different skill. Accumulators often become bad spenders because they spent 40 years training themselves to say no. Saying no built the pile. But if they never learn to say yes, the pile becomes a museum exhibit. The goal is not to worship the pile. The goal is to use the pile wisely. So here is the practical contract I would make. For the first years of retirement, I will be careful on purpose. I will respect sequence risk. I will keep a cash reserve. I will protect essential spending. I will not pretend the early years do not matter every year. I will review the plan, honestly. I will not let old assumptions govern new facts. I will measure funded status, not just withdrawal rate. If the plan is on track, I will stay steady. If the plan falls behind, I will trim flexible spending before the damage becomes permanent. If the plan moves materially ahead, I will not let fear steal the benefit. I will consider a measured raise, a living dividend, greater gifting, or more experiences while health and time are still available. I will protect a care reserve. I will not target literal zero unless I know my death date, which I do not. I will not become the richest person in the graveyard just because spending makes me nervous. I will not become old and fragile because pleasure made me careless. I will spend with rules. I will save with purpose. I will give with intention. I will update the plan because life keeps moving. That contract is balanced, and balance is what retirement needs. The final choice is simple but not easy. You can treat retirement as a bunker hide inside your portfolio and hope the pile remains large enough to comfort you while life quietly passes. Or you can treat retirement as a managed enterprise, one that protects the downside, measures the surplus, and turns good outcomes into a better life. I know which one I would choose. I do not want to run out of money, but I also do not want money to run out of time. That is the real risk nobody puts on the front page of a retirement brochure. Money can survive you, but the people you love, the health you have, the trips you can take, the hands you can hold, the rooms you can still walk into, the memories you can still create. Those things have a shorter clock. A financial plan that ignores that clock is incomplete. It may be safe, it may be elegant, it may be mathematically impressive, but it is incomplete. The point of retirement planning is not to win a contest against mortality by leaving behind the largest possible account. The point is to use capital to create security, dignity, freedom, and meaning across the years you actually get. So start cautiously, review annually, measure funded status. Use guardrails. Separate essential and flexible spending. Respect the spending smile. Keep a care reserve. Take living dividends when the plan earns them. Give while you can see the joy. Spend more when the evidence says you can. Cut back when the evidence says you should. And never forget that the money is not the master. It is the tool. If your portfolio is ahead after 5 years, do not automatically floor the accelerator. That is foolish. But do not leave the car in the garage forever either. The road is still open. Your hands are still strong enough to steer. And the whole reason you built the engine was to go somewhere.